So simple events and their complements. Says probability is a way of describing how likely it is that a particular event will occur. And it could be described two ways. Quantitative is when you use a ratio. And remember, ratios could be represented with fractions, decimals, or percents. Okay, and if you actually look at the N in quantitative, okay, that means that you're showing in number form. Now, qualitative is when you describe if something is likely to happen. So that's going to be in words. And the words could be impossible, unlikely, equally likely, likely, and certain. And what we're going to do, we're going to practice that. Now, on this number line, you have 0 through 1, and then you have those benchmarks that you need to look at in order to see if it's likely or unlikely. Okay, so if you have a 0 over any number, whatever, if it's 0, then that means that this is going to be impossible to get. Now, it's between 0 and half. So it could be 0 and 50%. If it's between that, then it could be unlikely. The chances of getting that certain event will be unlikely. Now, if it's right in the middle, it's exactly half, then that means it could be described as equally likely, or even chances. Now, there's two words for that one. It depends which one they use, but at least you know that it could be either equally likely or even chances. Now, it's more than 50%, but less than 100, it could be likely. And if it's 1 or 100%, then that means it could be certain that it's going to happen. So basically, these are just descriptions of how that event that they're asking you, if it's going to be possible or not. That's all it is, likely or not. And if you go based on this number line, it should help you out. Okay, so here is where we're going to determine if an event is likely or unlikely. Okay, and the way to find that is with this, I guess it would be formula or how to set it up. So to find the probability of an event, first find the number of ways the event can occur, then divide by the total number of possible outcomes. So on the top will be the number of favorable outcomes, and then on the bottom, the number of possible outcomes. And we're going to practice that with the examples here. Now, if you look at your examples, it says find the probability of each event using the bag of marbles and state how likely the event is to occur. So here you have a bag of marbles, okay? Now, before we could even get started, we need to find out how many of each color we have and then how many total we have. So in this case, we have one white marble. We have 4 black marbles. And then we have 3 striped marbles. So we have a total of 8 marbles. Now, whenever they want to ask you what event they want to occur, they want the probability of, they'll going to have put a P for probability and then what they want to happen. So the picking a black marble is your favorable event. So if we know that that's my favorable event outcome, then we're going to put 4 on top. And because it's 8 total, we're going to put 4 over 8. Now we do need to simplify that. And if we simplify it, this becomes 1/2. So just based on that 1/2, would it be impossible, unlikely, evenly likely, likely, or certain? Right in the middle means equally likely. So we're going to put equally likely. So let's try the next one. The next one is asking for the probability of a white marble. So white marble would be 1 over 8. Okay, so would that be, what would be the qualitative words? Not impossible.
Unlikely.
It's unlikely. Impossible would be 0. Okay, now it says the probability of a striped marble. So that's going to be what?
3 over 8.
3 over 8. And would that be what qualitative?
Unlikely.
It's still unlikely. Because anything below half will be unlikely. Okay, now the next one is telling you to the probability of black or white. So that means I know that there are 4 black marbles and there's 1 white marble. So I will need to add those together. So that means the probability of either or would be 5 over 8. So would that be unlikely or likely? Likely. Now the next one is asking for the probability of a polka dot. Do we have polka dot marbles? No. So then what do you think the probability is going to be? 0 out of 8, which is just 0, and that would be impossible. And then the last one is asking for the probability of picking a black marble, a white marble, or a striped marble. So that means it's 8 out of 8, which equals to 1, and that's going to be certain. So if you understand fractions, especially if you could simplify them, make sure you simplify them. You got to see if anything is below half or above half. And that way, because those are usually the events they're going to ask you, and it's going to be either the middle, exactly in the middle, or below or above half. So those are kind of a benchmark that you need to be looking for, and then you could say if it's likely or unlikely. Got it? Okay, now sometimes they're going to ask you for unfavorable events. Okay, so basically they'll tell you, oh, we want all of them except blue. Okay, so pick all of them except blue. So what would be the probability of that? Well, that is called complementary probability. So it says you can also find the probability of an unfavorable event. This is the complement of a favorable event. Okay, so when you find the complement, the sum of a probability and its complement is going to equal to 1. So they're gonna give you, if you add the probability of picking something plus the probability of not picking that same thing, then it should equal to 1. So here's an example. Neo is choosing a marble from a bag containing 2 red marbles, 4 blue marbles, and 1 green marbles. What is the probability that she will not choose a green marble? So basically, they want any other color but green. So then what you're going to do is you're going to do the probability of not green. And that's how they're usually going to put it. So let's look at how many greens we have. So we have 1 green out of how many? 7. 1 green out of 7. Remember, the bottom number is going to be everything, all of it, not just, you don't exclude anything. Okay? Now then it says the probability of not getting a green. So not a green marbles. So that means that the rest are there. That's the probability you're looking for. So that's going to be 6/7. So now what we're going to do, this is a probability of green. This is the probability of not green. So I have 1/7 to be green. Not green is 6/7. So when you add it up, it becomes 7/7, which equals to 1. So that's how you know if you did it correctly. Okay? Always try to find the probability of the event and then not the event. So you make sure that you have it correctly. Okay, so here are some examples. It says find the probability of each event using the number cube. Show the probability and its complement have a sum of 1. So they're giving you the event and not the event. So what's the probability of getting a 3 when you roll that cube? 1 out of how many?
6.
1 out of 6. Okay, what's the probability of not getting a 3?
5 out of 6.
It's what? 5 out of 6? Okay, so if I were to describe it in qualitative terms, 1/6, would that be likely or unlikely?
Unlikely.
Unlikely. How about 5 out of 6? Likely. Okay, so when we add them, 1/6 and 5/6, that equals to 6/6, and that equals to 1, right? Okay, let's try the next one. So the probability of getting a 2 or a 5. Yes, 2 out of 6, because 2 is 1 time, 5 is 1 time. When you add them up, that's going to give you 2 out of 6. And remember, we need to simplify it. We always write it in simplest form. Now, in this case, is that going to be a likely or unlikely? Unlikely. Okay, how about the probability of not getting 2 or 5? 4 out of 6, which equals to 2/3. And is that likely or unlikely? Likely. Now, if we add 1/3 and 2/3, that gives us 3/3, which equals to 1. So far we've done it correctly, right? Okay, let's go to the next one. The probability of an odd number. Odd number.
3 out of 6.
3 out of 6. Good, because odd numbers are 1, 3, and 5. So 3 out of 6 is equal to 1/2. So what would be the qualitative?
Equally likely.
Equally likely. So of not getting an odd number,
3 out of 6.
3 out of 6, which is 1/2, and that also is equally likely. So if I do 1/2 plus 1/2, that gives us 2 halves, which equals to 1. Now here is the weather. Remember we talked about the weather before we started the lesson. It says if the chance of rain is 30%, what is the probability of its complement?
Unlikely.
Unlikely, it is 30%, but that's not what they're asking. They're asking what is the probability of its complement. Remember, complement means what? It's on the top. Complement means an unfavorable event. So we know that there's 30% chance of rain. So I know it's going to be... So we know that the probability of rain is 30%. So what's the probability of not rain?
70.
There you go. So that's going to be 70%. So that means that what they're asking us is 70%. So remember, your probability could be shown as a fraction, decimal, or percent. Right now we're concentrating more on fractions, but later on it's going to be decimals and percents too. Okay, so you have 10 minutes to complete this assignment. If you understand it, it should go by quickly. Make sure you put your notes in your composition book, and I will be giving you this. If you finish, turn it in. If you do not finish, make sure you are taking it for homework and turning it in tomorrow.